Midwest Whitetails brought to you by Realtree, Hoyt, Muddy Outdoors, Fuse Accessories, Frigid Forage, Rocket Arrowheads, Scott Archery, Night and Hail Game Calls, Camden Outdoors, and Nikon.
Well, thanks for joining me today on Midwest Whitetail. I've got a project I've got to do out on the farm today. I've got to frost seed a little small 1 acre food plot. So I'm going to bring you along with me on that. Also, I'm going to talk about shot placement for bow hunting turkeys, and finally a quick tuning tip. So thanks for joining me. Hope you enjoy it. Got about a 1 acre food plot down in this bottom that I need to frost seed. It's almost the end of March, but we're supposed to get, a lot of colder conditions coming in here with some freezing and thawing, and we're supposed to even get some snow, and that's ideal for frost seeding. The plot was actually tilled up late last summer, so it's mostly bare dirt, which works really well. You get good seed to soil contact, get a little freezing and thawing, takes that seed in just real shallow, and makes for perfect germination. Come on along, join me. I'm going to put some seed on the ground here. I'm going to be planting Frigid Forage Pure Trophy Clover. And this is a blend of 5 clovers. There's a couple of reds, and I think there's 3 whites. 3 white clovers. And the nice thing about a blend versus just planting, a pure strain is different growing conditions will encourage, different varieties of the clovers to do well. This is kind of a wet spot down in here, and some of the clovers do better when they're wet than others do. So it makes sense to use blends, unless you're really good at this stuff where you really understand the varieties really well. You're better off just using the blend. This is about 1 acre, and it was tilled up the end of last summer. So I should get good germination on this, and I'm looking forward to hunting over it. This is one of my, it's one of the cooler spots on the farm down in this bottom, and it'll be good to get it grown to clover. So the step now, of course, is to get it into the spreader. Now the next step is always setting the spreader to the right calibration, and I tend to go a little bit on the light side at first. I set it so it doesn't spread very heavy, and that way I can go back and overseed something. That's better than setting it real heavy and then running out of seed before you get to the end of the plot. All we're doing is we move this little stopper. I think it was set for oats. I think that's why it was so far open. So wherever you move that to, then when you open this, it goes around and drops off behind that little stopper. And that's what sets how wide the opening is, the spacing on the spreader, and that determines how much seed comes out. So you got to watch how far your seed is spreading. Sometimes it's, with these clovers, it's kind of hard to see the seed because they're so small, but that gives you an idea of the band that you're spreading as you go around. So a little bit of overlap is good on the broadcasting, so that I wouldn't worry so much about that. But main thing is to kind of get a real basic feel for how much you're covering and how much seed you're putting down, and then you can tweak your settings for the spreader after that. Well, that's a good job to have done. I'd say, this being about the end of March, we're probably a good month ahead of when we would be able to get into a field that's this low and this wet, even with good dry conditions, to till it and drill it. So we're going to get a good jump start. So I'd say by the fall, we're going to be able to actually be hunting over clover on this food plot. Sometimes it takes a year if you go in and plant it in April or May. And this one, I would say we'll be hunting over clover. I've got a tree stand up in that corner, and I'd say within 3 weeks we're going to be seeing some clover in this little plot, maybe even sooner than that if it warms up good. And I'll be in there come October and November, and I promise you that this is going to be a year for some action down here. I got a good feeling about this spot. It's if It's a cool little spot to begin with, and now with the Trophy Clover blend in there, that should be the final thing that pulls them down into this bottom. So we'll keep you informed, but expect to see some hunts taking place on this field this fall. Well, turkey season is right around the corner. Greg and Jared, in fact, are heading out to Nebraska here in the next couple of days to hunt. And it's time now to start talking about bow hunting turkeys and shot placement on turkeys. And it's really a lot more challenging than I think a lot of people would first think, because the kill zone on a turkey is literally the size of your fist. So obviously you got to get these turkeys in close. And I always thought anything inside of 10 yards, 10 to 12 yards is pretty good range for a turkey. 15 yards to 20 yards is like really a long shot on a turkey. So keep that in mind. I always set decoys in close to the blind, excuse me, get it so that the turkey has to walk past the front of the blind in order to confront the decoy. Just set up stuff that you can do where you can get that turkey in a little bit closer for that real easy shot. And now let's talk a little bit about exactly where that kill zone is and how you access it. The front on shot, the kill zone is generally going to be right at the top of the beard. So if you look at where the beard attaches to the breast of the turkey and he's coming straight at you, that's going to be your target. And on a side shot, you're going to go a little bit higher than what most people think. It's right where the wing attaches, the wing butt. It's not the wing itself, but where the wing attaches. Almost if a turkey had a shoulder, it would be the turkey's shoulder. And that's going to get you into that vital core area of the bird. And it's higher than most people think. Most people tend to shoot too low and they get into all that breast meat, which is very non-vital. And the third angle that I've used is when they're strutting straight away from me, when their fan is all spread out, and I just aim right for the center of the fan where all the feathers come together. It's kind of their rump, I guess, but when you shoot them there, it goes right up through and takes out the vitals on the bird. So those are your aim points. And the other thing you want to keep in mind when you're bow hunting turkeys is the broadhead that you use. And I've been a big believer in using the biggest broadhead you possibly can. If you're shooting, 60, 70 pounds, which most of us are with our deer hunting bows, you've got no problem with penetration on a turkey. A giant broadhead, 2 3/4 inch cutting diameter, something like that is going to give you that little bit extra margin for error. It's also going to do more damage when it hits the bird. Rocket makes a huge head. I think it's called the Turkey Tomahawk. That's one that, if you're planning on hunting turkeys this spring, with your bow, you might want to check that one out. There's a couple others in their line that open up 2 inches or slightly more than 2 inches, but I would just encourage you to go for the biggest one you can, and the Turkey Tomahawk is definitely, in my opinion, the most ethical broadhead on the market for turkey hunting. There's no point in shooting them with the same heads that you shoot at deer. The only reason I wouldn't use a broadhead like that is if it's not legal in the state where you hunt. So wait for that bird. Don't take that 20-yard shot when that bird's out there bopping around. Let him come into 15 yards or less and get that really good bead on that small fist-sized target. In this next segment, I've got a really quick tuning tip for you. This is the one I kind of alluded to a little bit in my most recent blog where I talked about the cam lean on a bow. And you can adjust it on bows that have a split harness like this one does. So if I wanted to tip the limb a little bit, all I'd have to do is put it in a bow press, take the tension off, remove this side, twist it up a little bit in the direction that would shorten that, and put it back on again. And then when you put tension back on the bow, it's going to tend to tip the limb just a little bit in that direction. So that's not really going to be super important to you unless, for some reason, you're getting a sideways tear that you just can't eliminate, and then you check it and you say, oh boy, my top cam has leaned a little bit on me. And it does happen on some bows. I've seen it before for sure. And over time, a lot of times it'll happen too. Maybe the first year it's fine, second year it's fine, third year, the string starts to stretch a little bit for whatever reason, and then the harness does, and one side goes a little bit more than the other, and your cam is tipping. So the easiest way to check it is just to lay an arrow right down along the edge of the cam. So now I'm just laying that arrow down there. I'm looking to see if it lines up parallel with the string. So I've got a nice flat plane, because these cams are machined with a nice flat plane. I lay that arrow, which is nice and perfectly straight, down along there. And I look at how that lines up with the string. And this one lines up perfectly. And I knew that it did, of course, because I'd adjusted it. But I can't remember if it was even off before. I'd done so many adjustments to my bow trying to get rid of that tail left tear that was caused by my shooting form that I had to go back and reset everything by the time I got done. But anyway, that's the tuning tip of the day. You want to check that top cam if you've got a bow like this one, and some, if you got a 2-cam bow, usually you can do both because you've got a split harness on the top and the bottom. But on a bow like this one, like a hybrid, where you've got a split yoke on the top, you just lay that arrow right along the side of the cam, and you compare it to the string, and it's just perfectly parallel to the string. That's what you want. If it wasn't, put it in the bow press, tighten up one side or the other of the split yoke, and that'll bring the limb in perfect alignment with the string. Well, thanks for joining me this week. We're going to be back again next week, where I know Jared and Greg are going to be turkey hunting in Nebraska, so we should bring you some action from that hunt, and we'll bring you another tuning tip and some more projects from the farm. So I appreciate you joining us. We'll see you again next week for the next episode of Midwest Whitetail, and remember to always dream big.